Welcome back to Outside View Scandals. Today we're driving into a story that combines religion, rebellion, and a bit of linguistic drama. The scandal of the Wycliffe Bible. It's a tale of a man who dared to translate the Bible into English and a church that responded with all the subtlety of a medieval inquisition. So grab your vellum and quilts, because this is going to be one wild ride through history. But let's set the scene. It's the 14th century and England is a land of stark contrasts. You've got serfs toiling in the fields, nobles plotting in castles, and the church controlling just about everything else. Latin is the language of the educated elite, and the Bible is no exception. For the average person, scripture is as inaccessible as a Wi-Fi signal in the middle of the Sahara. Enter John Wycliffe, a man with a mission, or, depending on your perspective, a penchant for causing trouble. Wycliffe was a theologian and a scholar at Oxford, which in those days made him one of the intellectual heavyweights of his time. But he wasn't content with debating theological nuances in Latin. No, Wycliffe had the radical idea that the Bible should be available to everyone in their own language, because heaven forbid, the common folk actually understand what they are being told to believe. In the late 1370s, Wycliffe and his followers, known as the Lollards, began translating the Bible into Middle English. And this was revolutionary. For the first time, people who didn't speak Latin, which was kind of most of England, could read the scriptures for themselves. And that, my friends, was a problem. You see, the church wasn't exactly keen on sharing its monopoly on biblical interpretation. They feared that giving people direct access to the Bible would lead to heresy, confusion, and, independent thought. The Wycliffe Bible quickly became a flashpoint for controversy. The church condemned it, arguing that scripture in the hands of the uneducated would lead to chaos. And to be fair, they had a point. After all, once people started reading the Bible, they might notice certain discrepancies between scripture and the practices of the church. Like, say, the selling of indulgences or the opulent lifestyles of some clergy members. Nothing undermines a good business model like an informed customer base. Wycliffe's translation was declared heretical, and possession of the Wycliffe Bible became a crime. Owning a copy could get you excommunicated or worse, executed. Because nothing says divine love like burning someone at the stake for reading the wrong book. But the scandal didn't stop there. The church went to extraordinary lengths to suppress Wycliffe's influence, even after his death in 1384. In 1415, the Council of Constance declared Wycliffe a heretic, and in 1428, his remains were exhumed, burned, and thrown into the river Swift. Talk about holding a grudge here. Meanwhile, the Lollards continued to spread Wycliffe's teachings, often at great personal risk. They believed in the idea of a priesthood of all believers and rejected many of the church's practices, from transubstantiation to clerical celibacy. For their efforts, they were hunted down, tried for heresy, and frequently executed. It's a classical case of shoot the messenger, or in this case, burn the messenger. The Wycliffe Bible scandal raises some uncomfortable questions about power and control. Why was the church so threatened by a translation of the Bible? Part of the answer lies in the medieval power structures. The church wasn't just a religious institution. It was a political and economic powerhouse. Keeping the Bible in Latin maintained their authority, ensuring that priests and bishops were the gatekeepers of divine knowledge. By translating the Bible into English, Wycliffe challenged that authority. He argued that scripture should be the ultimate guide for Christians, not the interpretations of the clergy. This was a radical idea in a world where questioning the church was akin to questioning the natural order. But let's not forget the irony here. The church, in its efforts to suppress the Wycliffe Bible, ended up giving it even more attention. And there's nothing like a good ban to boost demand. Copies of the Wycliffe Bible were smuggled across England, read in secret, and passed down through generations. It's the medieval equivalent of a book going viral. The legacy of the Wycliffe Bible is profound. It laid the groundwork for later reformers like Martin Luther, who would take the idea of translating scripture and run with it. It also paved the way for the English Reformation and the eventual establishment of Protestantism in England. In a sense, Wycliffe's scandalous translation planted the seeds for a revolution that would change the course of history. But what can we learn from the scandal of the Wycliffe Bible? First, that challenging authority is never easy, but it's often necessary. And Wycliffe's work may have been condemned in his time, but it ultimately contributed to greater religious freedom and understanding. And second, that knowledge is power. Giving people access to information, even if it's controversial, is a catalyst for change. And finally, that suppressing an idea only makes it stronger. The church tried to bury Wycliffe's legacy, but instead they ensured it would endure. Thank you for tuning in to Outside View Scandals. And in this case, once again, or for the first time, I better have to say, I have some really extreme reactions in the meantime when I talk about those little pieces of church history. And people then attack me with, oh, you church hater and blah, 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 blah. Just for the record, to put this all into perspective. The freedom of learning from history is there for everyone. And I'm Catholic, by the way. So, if you understand now the context of me still criticizing the church for what happened in the past and not stopping there, if you want to see another video, the next one is right here in the end screen.